But now we want to get going into why you're here and introduce Dawn Erling. The cool thing about these lunch and learns is I actually met Dawn at a lunch and learn. She wasn't even really part of our team, really wasn't part of our group. She came to, was it the 1031 exchange? Mm-hmm. We had a great class. It is actually CE credits for realtors. Are you guys that I'm just meeting, are you guys realtors? Are you investors? More investors? So anyway, I mean, that class would have been really probably been good for you guys too. There's a lot of aha moments when you don't know what you don't know. And so when he's talking about doing a reverse 1031 exchange, you can go purchase your replacement property first and how to set that up and the entity structure where you can actually maybe eke out a little bit more than the 180 days on that exchange. It was a really good class, but Dawn came to that just to learn, like you guys that are investors. And so we got talking about what she does. And I don't know a lot of mobile home investors. It's a niche market. It's something that we could all learn a little bit about. For us that are realtors, the more we know, the more we can help our clients, right? Or at least just have somebody to refer them to. I don't want to learn how to do, raw land and developments, and I don't do commercial. I'm residential real estate. So even with mobile homes, it's like I want to know stuff, but I may not necessarily. I might do my own investing, but I might not necessarily represent my client in that. But so it's nice to know somebody that has that experience in the field to refer them to. So I'm going to just let Dawn go. I know she's got a lot of material, so if she goes over things really quick, I mean, we'll have Q&A. I'm not going to keep you to an exact cutoff, but you know what, you guys got places to be, so we'll try and respect that. But if you want to stick around and we go over a little bit, then we have the freedom to do that too. So, Dawn Erling.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys. Thanks for having me here. Hopefully I can add value and maybe even open up your minds, hopefully a little bit at least, to just another niche. Just to tell you a little bit about me, over 20 years real estate experience just in general, and 15 years mobile home investing. So I've been around the block a little bit with mobile homes, specifically in Utah, Arizona, as well as also Idaho. We've invested in other markets such as South Carolina, North Carolina, and Florida with mobile homes. I've owned parks. We've done mobile homes on land, and also a lot of the stuff that I really like, actually quick in, quick out, nice cash flows, actually mobile homes sitting in parks. And I know I've started seeing quite a bit more realtor signs in the parks recently. And so I know that there might be some more phone calls based off of competition in the marketplace and things like that, as well as also I've actually gotten quite a few phone calls recently from individuals that are trying to sell their homes in order to get into, their mobile homes in order to get into a home. In fact, I'm actually working on right now where it's a situation where the agent didn't know exactly what to do, how to help the client. And unfortunately, it almost lost them the deal on the backside with being able to close the home. So hopefully this information, you'll end up finding some value in it, understand a little bit more maybe what some of the opportunities are. Based off of that, let's just go ahead and jump into it because like Jeff was saying, I do have a lot of information to offer. So a lot of people look at these as worthless leads. It's going to break the bank. It's a floating, not floating piece of garbage sitting in a park, It's, there's all these jokes that you have. Most people view it as basically a worthless lead, a tin can. I look at it as a cash cow. So, why it makes sense is basically, what's happening within our market. Is there affordability? Come on, guys. You guys live?
No.
I want some interaction. Come on. What is it affordable right now? Are most of your people able to afford a home easily? No, the reality is no, it's not. And so what's going to happen is where are people going to be able to afford? The trailer park, okay? If they have credit, where are they going to go? They're not going to even be able to get into an apartment. Where are they going to go? The trailer park. They look at debt to income ratios, a lot of these parks. They don't necessarily look so much at credit score. So what happens is they have a lot easier time. And that's the other thing is too, is if you've got a client that's been trying, you end up having to break it to them and they say, that their credit score just isn't cutting it, and that their activities that they're doing, their poor behavior and patterns as far as how they spend their money is not helping their credit score so they can actually qualify for a house. There are options. Maybe you have to send them to the trailer park, okay? Work on things, have something that has some sort of dollar amount value that they can work toward, that they could sell out, and they can even get into what kind of loan? FHA, right? Okay. So it also shows a track history as far as from a rent standpoint too. So there's a lot of opportunities, high returns. We've got a lot of high returns and within it, and I'll actually show you guys some of my case studies. Low competition in a lot of cases. There is more competition coming into the trailer parks now just because you guys, who's investors here? Is it easy to find a flip today?
No.
You got to bust your buns, right? And I flip houses too, but I'm hanging out in the trailer park more just because it's easier for me because I've already established a rapport with a lot of the parks. But there's a lot of investors that are coming into the parks. How many of you guys have seen wholesale deals that were mobile homes? And you're like, what the heck am I gonna do with that? Right? Okay. How can I make money off of that? So there's more and more people coming into that. So site-built homes, I mean, our market right here, you're lucky if you can get 250, 350, 400, the average single-family entry-level home. You're normally putting in, what, 25, 65 at least, $1,000 into it. You have a lower return, right, because of our margins, because we're where we need to buy it, right? And then you also end up having higher acquisition costs. So as far as mobile homes, most of the time I'm into them less than 25 total, everything. Everything. Did you just hear me? Everything, okay? And if I don't, it doesn't match my return, okay? The other thing too is typically the repair costs, I'm normally into a max of $10,000 and they look pretty dang good when they're done. They're healthy, safe, and habitable. So I always make sure that the home is going to be something that I wouldn't mind somebody else living in. Now there's other individuals in this industry, I know quite a few that don't end up embracing that, but I stand behind my product. And for that, a lot of the park managers will end up referring to me first. Higher returns and also lower input. So is this really a big deal? How many mobile home parks do you think we have here? We have a few? You'd be blown away with how many we do have. It's not as big as South Carolina by any means. I mean, every corner that you end up turning down whatever street, you've got a mobile home sitting on land or a mobile home park, or something that's running down the road that's a double wide, that's in two pieces. There's always a mobile home somewhere, okay? But there is a decent number of homes that are mobile homes, manufactured homes, within our housing stock. And so if you ignore that, you're going to be missing out on some of the different opportunities.
Do you know how full these mobile homes, like parks, stay usually? Are they like
100%.
100%?
Right now, they're 100%. Back in 2000, we got hit first before site-built homes did, as far as a shift in the market. So like 2004, 2005, they got hung because what they were trying to do is move out the old junkers and incentivize the dealers to bring them in. When financing got cut, just like before we did with the regular housing crisis, they ended up being vacant parks. So a lot of the parks have been basically taken over by large conglomerates and things like that. They're bringing in a lot of different homes. There's also a lot of things that you end up finding within the local area, especially if you're working with an RHP community. There's a lot of RHP owned communities throughout our metro area. They specifically have a requirement that the home, they help make you sign a document, says that the home's going to remain in the park for at least 4 years. Every time it's transferred over. You're not allowed to move it for 4 years. So they want to retain those homes because they want to, the cost as a park owner, my operating expense ratio, when I have to bring in a home, I have to own a home, could be 35 to 75% very easily if I'm not careful. Whereas if I just rent out the land and I can keep on renting the land and somebody else ends up having that unit and takes care of that responsibility of fixing it, I'm looking at 15, maybe 30%, depending on what I have as far as facilities and other things that I'm taking care of with the community.
What's RHP stand for?
I don't remember what their acronym. Yeah, Bayshore Homes is their sales side. So if you end up seeing Bayshore Homes, like I'm trying to think of one of the ones near here, Brookside isn't too far away. Camelot up in North Salt Lake is a RHP community. They all look the same as far as their signage.
So what that means is you have to sign a thing that you're gonna stay in that trailer for.
So that home has to remain in their park for that period of time, unless they kick you out. So you got to play the games of whoever ends up owning the land too, right? So there's risk associated with this. I'll get into more of that, but I just want to throw that out there. So How many of you guys have rentals? What kind of cash flow are you getting per month? I don't know if you feel comfortable sharing that. Are you making 200 spread, 300 spread per unit? Okay. You probably bought them a while ago though, right? Okay. Because today, what kind of spread are you getting? Negative 100? Is that about right? Okay. Yeah, it depends on how much you put down, and it depends on whether it's a multi-unit, how well you bought it, and whether you did a lot of value add, right? Any of you guys that are investors know what I'm talking about, okay, as far as that goes. Some of you agents that are working with investors, you probably have experienced some of that. So the thing is a positive cash flow with a payoff of in full within 6 months to maybe 4 years. And then it continues on after that with that as being positive cash flow. Is that appealing? How many of you guys don't like an extra $300 to $500 per home in your pocket when you invested $25,000 or less? You guys all right? Right? I mean, seriously, guys, you're not excited about that? You guys alive? There's some cartwheels that should be happening right now, okay? But I mean, these are just some quick numbers just to take a look at the returns you can get on somebody else's worthless, trashy trailer. Right? So, is there an elephant in the room? Don't look at me and say that, okay? But I'm on it. I didn't eat anything. I'm on a weight loss program. We're working out. But there are stigmas associated with this industry, okay? We're always making fun of that. You know, my family, oh my goodness, for years, I've gotten anything that was trailer park, trailer trash, redneck. One year I came home from being on the road, on a road trip, and I had a bunch of flamingos, pink flamingos in my front yard. So guess who left them in the front yard? Until my nephew had to come back and cut the grass. I got him back. But anyway, a lot of people view them as a depreciating asset. What do you think?
It's appreciating now. They've been
It
appreciating.
always has been appreciating. You know what? I've been investing in real estate for many years. I went through the upturn and the downturn. You know what investment held me and kept me and sustained me? My mobile home stuff. The reason for that is there always a need for low income housing? Is there always a need for somebody to rent something or for financing to be offered from somebody else? The answer is yes. And the other thing is too, is if you make it affordable, what ends up happening? What happens to your number of potential buyers? It's huge, right? Absolutely huge. So if you make it affordable, you buy the right product, you price it right, you offer the right things, you're not going to have to worry about it being depreciating. I have one home. I don't have it in this one. But I have one home that I took as a trade-in on another home. Do you know you could do that? It's like trading in cars. It's awesome. My return's like infinity. You know what that looks like? So you go to calculate it out and it goes error. When I see something like that, I love it. And now I'm not a math whiz by any means, but I know what an error means ends up meaning that there's so many, it's like an infinite return that it can't even calculate it. I'm pretty excited when that happens. But I have a home that I got as a trade-in. I have sold that home with financing 4 different times. There's so much money that I've made with that home. So much money. And the thing is too, is I just recently resold that home for $3,000 more. And that may not sound much, but when you're dealing with tens of thousands, that's a decent difference. And when you're charging 12% interest, does that end up adding up? Yes, it does, right? So you can see where I'm at with in regard to that. So a lot of people are like, you know, they're uninsurable. They are insurable. Most of our people, other than with State Farm, they normally have no problem with being able to get insurance. There are people that will insure these. Not enough income to be worth it. Well, if you don't like an extra $300 to $500 to put in your pocket per month and a return, I'll show you some of my returns. If you don't like those kinds of returns, then I can't help you. Okay, sorry. Not worth repairing. There's a lot of people that view them as not being worth repairing. The thing is, for the right price, it might be. There are many homes that I have walked away from because it didn't make sense. So here's my first deal. I don't think I did too bad. It was a single wide. It was a couple years ago, but just to show you where things were. $2,000 purchase price, repairs $3,500, 2 months, resold it for $11,500, $2,500 down, 12.9% interest, $253 a month, 45 months. Net profit, $11,500 minus $5,500 equals 6, minus the $23.99, or plus the $23.99, sorry, $83.99. Look at this return. And even per year. What kind of returns are you guys getting on your multiplexes or your single family homes? What kind of yearly returns are you getting? How much did you have to spend to get that? Do you see how much I had to spend to get that? And a good portion of the money was back when they put the money down, right? Okay. Now that was a little while ago. It's not the most beautiful home. I did all the repairs myself on this one. This was after they'd moved in. I forgot to take pictures before they moved in. So, but they ended up paying it off. Here's another one, $4,000. It was turnkey. The guy liked me, so he gave it to me basically for $4,000. Holding costs were only $200. It was basically turnkey. Sold it for $15,000. Got $2,000 down, 12.9%, $300 a month, 58 months. How about that return? You all right with that? Oh, wow.
So I see you've got interest up there too. Are you collecting interest on this? You're taking payments for it, then you are more or less the lender? Okay.
Because there's not options for lending on these. If it's older than 15 years, there's literally nothing out there. Literally nothing. So what's that?
There's no private sources.
Not very many, and that's one thing that we're looking to capture. We've got some private money sources that we are working on structuring our own options for Idaho, as well as also Utah and Arizona to be able to do the financing for these. We're working on all kinds of returns, and also the thing that's unfortunate is that there's been such inflation, even in a trailer park, as far as what people are trying to sell them for and what people are paying for them. I need to protect myself better, so we're really looking to tweak down as to what that is. But even 50% of the purchase price would still be better than nothing, right? Because what you are going to find, as far as if you are an agent or you're trying to sell a home to somebody that is getting out of a mobile home, in a lot of cases, when they go to try to resell it, they're going to try to sell it for cash. Well, how many people do you know that are interested in moving into the trailer park are willing to pay $45,000 cash? If they have $45,000 cash, where are they buying? They're buying a house or two with the down payment, right? So, you know, in a lot of cases, they're not going to choose to hang out in the trailer park and pay that $45,000. So how are you going to get out from underneath that? Sell for a discount, for cash, maybe to somebody else that's an investor. And the other thing is too, is what's the condition of that home? It may not be appealing to the person that wants to pay $45,000 for a house. So financing is not offered. So we do use a variety of different ways in which to be able to do this. A lot of times we'll end up selling for cash, but a lot of times what we'll also do, and this is turnkey. I mean, look at this thing. You wouldn't think that it would look that good, right? It's a good little home.
I have a question. So do you have to own all the mobile homes like in the park, or can you just, okay, how? Like, do you just buy the land and rent out the land and have them buy the trailer from you? So
good question. So what happens is the park owns the land. You have to get qualified with the park in order to buy in the park. Me, I'm a licensed dealer. I already have relationships built throughout pretty much most of the parks throughout the Weber, Davis, Salt Lake, Utah counties. And so when I come in there, they already know that we're licensed dealers and that we already have established a relationship. So they're okay with us buying homes for the most part in their community. And then we end up, we're responsible for the lot rent at that point in time. And we can go ahead, and as long as we end up abiding by what the park wants us to do, because the thing is too, is some of these homes have had a lot of deferred maintenance. And so skirting might need to be fixed from an appeal standpoint, or they might need to be re-sided. So they'll take the tin siding off and we'll put vinyl siding on it. Kind of like what this one had, just to make it look updated, cleaner, fresher, brighter, paint them, stuff like that. So you need to make sure that you're in compliance with what the park wants, or else they will cost you a lot of money.
So kind of, that's what it sounds like. So to get licensed, is that like something like a broker does? Can a normal person do that? Can an investor do that?
So I believe with the, I'm not positive on the agent, side of things, but I know as a my understanding is that as an agent, you can do mobile home transactions, because what happens is if you're doing multiple transactions, you either need to be a dealer or you need to be a licensed agent
Okay.
that specializes in that, is my understanding. Is that correct? Yes. And that's why my closing costs are pretty cheap, because I don't go through the normal title search. It's just like selling a car. Okay, I can't tell you how many I've closed on top of truck hoods, kitchen countertops, McDonald's, and you know I've done closings in a variety of different places. And it's just an exchange of title from one party to the next. You just need to do some due diligence to make sure that you're actually getting legit title, that they do have the right to transfer title, and that you actually are getting the right title. I had somebody try to give me a title for a Kia Sorento one time. I had to run down the road after.
There is like titles for houses, that kind of thing, but we're talking about like a certificate of a car.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, so like a bill of sale kind of ish thing. Okay.
that's a transaction, right? And so the thing that's nice, it keeps your costs down of transfer. If you go to transfer your title, as long as taxes are paid current, it's like $6.
Oh,
So it's crazy, ridiculously expensive closing costs.
So that class you were at when 1031 exchange, when you left, Ray said, oh, I forgot to tell her, you can do a 1031 exchange on a mobile home.
Interesting.
It's something he didn't get into in the class, but when we started talking about you doing the class and whatnot, he brought that up.
Interesting.
And he says, yeah, you gotta remove the axle. And I said, so does that mean it has to come with the land as before land? And he said, no. So when it comes to that, if you've been holding for a little while and you need to sell it, you're not talking about, you know, tens of thousands of dollars, but still deferring that profit into the next transaction would be pretty appealing. And so that's something
awesome.
I don't know enough.
Yeah,
to
that's
explain right
awesome.
now,
Yeah.
But I wanted to make sure you knew that.
Yeah, I
He
appreciate
brought
that.
up and said, hey, just make sure she knows.
Yeah, that's awesome. I reached out to him. We haven't connected yet, but I did reach out to him. That's awesome. Yeah, the other thing too is you can actually do self-directed IRAs. Some of your your administrators will actually allow you to self-direct IRAs into mobile homes as well. So the reason why we do that, we have the structure that we do as far as with seller financing, and you've got Dodd-Frank and SAFE Act, and you got those things. You got to make sure you dot your I's, cross your T's with that. But the reason why we do it is because we get to defer our profit. Okay, we don't have to realize our profit all at once. When we end up having cash sales, I get pretty upset with my business partner just because that's a decent sized gain for both of us to have to offset. He's got a bunch of little ones running around. I am not so privileged. I got a little furry one running around and he's not tax deductible. So, and a 21-year-old. So I wish they were tax deductible. But anyway, I mean, you know, single wide, this is a, you know, older home, it's clean. As long as it's clean, healthy, and habitable, people will be interested in moving into it. This one, do you see some of the trade type things I talk about in here? In some cases, from a repair standpoint, you got to get creative, folks. Okay. You know, in this one there was back when those big, huge box, big screens were awesome and cool. That beast was left in the home. There was a washer and dryer left in there, freezer, and then my contractor's like, oh, that stuff's awesome. I'm like, hey, you know what? If you haul it out, I'll trade you, and I'll just pay for the materials. You end up considering your labor as being an exchange for that, and I was able to keep my costs down. So there's cool stuff like that you can end up working out to be able to help keep your costs down. But anyway, like for instance, this one, sell $20,000. I actually sold this one a couple times, but I mean, this is just one snapshot of the times that I sold it. Is that an okay return?
Yeah.
So can you explain, I know what the answer is, but could you explain when you say, I sold it again?
Yeah, because basically what happens is if they hang out for 3 years and they're like, well, I don't like him anymore and I don't want to be tied to him anymore, so I moved out, and so, you know, he needs to move on too, and we need to part our own ways. We can't sell the mobile home for what we owe you, so what do we do?
She's the bank.
They give it back to the bank, right? And we just, you know, we're like, okay, that's fine. And then what do? Resell it again. So we get another down payment. In some cases, we need to do repairs. Most of the time, I get them back pretty clean, pretty decent. It's like light touch up after I've done a good job. So that's another reason why doing the good job on the front end is important. The thing is this, Do not rehab it like your single family flips. I recently saw somebody that picked one up that was a single wide mobile home. It was actually an old meth shack. Don't ask me how I know. But anyway, it was an old meth shack that was rehabbed. Somebody went in and rehabbed it like a single family home. They put granite countertops in it. Now there's a time and place for granite countertops, folks, okay? And they tried to relist it for $40,000. It's a single wide sitting in a park that doesn't bring $40,000. Guess who's going to continue to sit on that thing? And guess who ended up getting knocked online for having bought the meth shed in the park? Okay, so I mean, it's got bad press. People in the industry know what the reputation of that home was. And that's the other thing is how do you price these things out? It's not sitting on the MLS very often, right? How do you determine value? It's what Mark will bear, right? So it's one of those things where it's a matter of relying on somebody that knows something about that side of the industry and leveraging them. I can help out that way. It's also test marketing, right? It's a matter of seeing what some of the other stuff that's sitting out on Facebook Marketplace, KSL, Craigslist. Occasionally, you're going to see them on there, but mostly it'll be on those other two. As far as a price point, the big thing is it's got to be affordable.
Question about this case. So you're selling, is your seller financing is right from the get-go? You're not renting it for a while?
Most parks will not let you rent. If I could, in some cases, I definitely would. I have to seller finance. I can't even do a lease option on some of these. Yeah, a lot of the parks just won't simply allow it. They can rent it, but you can't. So, I mean, I took a trade-in. Thankfully, I didn't have to do any cleanup on this one. This thing was horrible. It was a hot mess. But we rehabbed this one. I made a ton of money off of that one. We had it in our portfolio probably for a couple of years, 5-10 years.
What would you say the percentage of defaults we get back up?
25-30% maybe, if even that much. Most of them pay off. I've got one that's I'm going to talk about that's a no deal. I'm going to see what you guys think in just a little bit. Hopefully if I can run forward. But I mean, here's another one just from a scenario. I mean, we didn't have to do a whole lot of work to it. Cleaned it up, resold it for a nice price. The home's a newer home. It's a double wide. Double wides, you know, are always going to sell a lot easier than some of the other stuff. I mean, the return on investment is just nuts.
So Don, where are you finding these?
So I've got relationships already established with a lot of the park managers. They're the gatekeepers. They hear about everything. I have also good relationships with a lot of the people doing the maintenance in the communities. And also a lot of times I've already sold homes in that community to somebody else, and I let them know on every one of their statements that if they refer a fellow person to me that's either looking to buy or sell, that we'll offer them a referral fee. We'll kick them back some money. We have done marketing. We're all over. I do sales and marketing for a variety of different companies. One of them is a restoration company right now, but I do sales and marketing for our own company. And from a Google standpoint, we actually have pretty decent rankings, and we end up getting referred that way too. We have vehicles that we drive around with that say we buy mobile homes. People laugh at us. And also in the investment groups, I'll also let people know that just get the word out. Because as far as direct mail, half these people, no, that's pretty stereotypical, and that's wrong to say. A lot of the people ignore mail, and a lot of times there's also restrictions as far as solicitations in the parks that you'll end up having some issues. And also bandit signs, I haven't found that they've worked so well, not very well in this area. In my Carolinas, they've worked out quite well, and also in Florida. But I mean, here's another one. This one, you know, pretty decent return. It's a nice home, has vaulted ceilings all throughout it. Had maple cabinets. I mean, it was chair rails, nice molding as well. Here's another one that we took back. It's a 1994. I got a great deal on this one. The people actually improved it when they gave it back to me, and that actually sold it. I hadn't even seen it the second time when we were getting it back. The park manager told me that they had a person that was looking for cash for it. They saw it, they wanted to buy it. So I basically landed, went to the home, took pictures, hadn't seen it yet, collected the cash, handed them title, and it was transferred out. I mean, you can't calculate that type of return there. That's one of them. We get a few. But I mean, it's a cute little home. This is the upgraded bathroom that they did. Not too bad, right? I mean, it's modern. They did some, they upgraded the heating units and some other stuff while they were living in there. And he was happy to give it back to us because he'd use it for what he needed for it. So what you have, I keep on saying mobile home, mobile home, mobile home. There's a distinct line between when you call it in the industry mobile home versus manufactured home. 1976, actually June of 1976 is when they put into effect the HUD code. So there's actually standardization as far as the way that these are constructed. It actually has to be, their building code is a red tin label on the back end of the structures. So if there's two different mobile homes, so if it's a double wide, there's two different structures. Each of the individual units will have their own red tin label. So from 76, June of 76, I think it was 22nd of 76 on, they were required to have that in order for it to be shipped and for it to be considered legit for being able to be transported, for people to be able to be habitated. The other thing too is, like for instance in Wyoming, the roof has to have a certain structure of integrity for snowpack. You have to have different wind zone ratings for Florida and other places where there's hurricanes and tornadoes, certain types of setups. So there's different things like that in addition to this that come into play. So mobile home is pre-76, June of 76. Manufactured home is post-76. 1985, they did some other changes as far as construction. 1994, when we had some of the nasty hurricanes down in Florida, they also ended up adding some additional things. The thing that's interesting, and that's that label I was talking about, the thing that's interesting is that the energy efficient products that we're familiar with in site-built homes, you know where they started them and they tested them? Mobile homes. Why? They're manufactured in a set setting. I mean, a lot of times it's not even an individual or a person that's doing a good portion of it. A lot of it's robots, right? So what's happened with the standardization of construction? It's pretty easy to test how a material is gonna pan out based off of that. And you're probably looking at me like, you're smoking some serious stuff. But the thing is, if you take a look at some of the earlier homes, there actually are some of those things that were put in, Fleetwood, Clayton, some of those ended up doing that. You have these, a lot of times they're gone, but occasionally you'll end up finding them. It's a data plate. It basically gives you all the specs on the home. Installation certificates sometimes are going to be listed on the home as well. You do have mobile homes, trailer homes. A lot of your people will talk about them as trailer homes. That's at pre-June 15th of 1976. Wasn't built to HUD standards, kind of no rhyme or reason. Any manufactured homes oppose that, and then you have modular and panelized. So if it has a steel frame underneath it and it's transported, wheels are taken off and set up on site, that's a manufactured home or mobile home, depending on where it falls as far as time frame, okay? A modular home is going to be a section, no steel underneath it. It's going to be put on the back of a bed, transported, put into modules, connected together on site, and now it's a modular home or panelized home, which will be basically assembled on site, but it was manufactured in a plant. So you have single wides, double wides, you even have park models. You have triple wides, you have quadruple wides. They're crazy to see. You guys ever seen a quadruple wide? Those things are awesome. It's like mobile home investors heaven. It's like the mansion of mobile homes. Taj Mahal tin? No? Okay. It's a rough curve, I guess. So locations of mobile homes is going to be in parks. You'll find them on private land, dealer lots, and then in some cases, movers will have them in storage lots. You've got all ages parks. Some people call them the family parks. You have restricted age, 55 plus, 45 plus, and then what I call transient. I own transient parks. I will never buy an individual mobile home sitting in somebody else's transient mobile home park. What do you think I mean by transient?
Like an oil place?
They can come and go in your slip.
They are okay with renting week to week. If you get what I mean. Day to day, hour per hour.
Oh, not good.
Week to week, okay? So what happens is you have people that are just in transition. They are in and out. They're not planning on setting up anywhere anytime soon. What are you going to attract into that kind of park? People that are just trying to figure out life, they're living day to day, right? Okay, they're gonna come and go. And so what's the quality of the park gonna be? Yeah, and so what's gonna happen is, what's gonna happen to your investment? It's gonna be like in some of the areas buying Section 8 housing, okay? In some cases in a low income area, right? So, that's not my ideal park to buy an individual mobile home in. And a lot of cases, your park owners won't let you play in their park because they're controlling it. So the big thing that I just said right there, and something to note, if you haven't noted it already, is the park manager and the park owner get to dictate who plays in their park or who doesn't. Proof of point.
Did you say you owned a transient park?
I've owned transient parks, and yeah, we sold them off. We got good money on them because it was popular and cool now to buy parks, when I got laughed at for the last like 10 years. So we sold them off.
The thing I was just thinking about though is you're actually buying, selling, and then flipping these homes. You're literally selling them. You can't just rent them out, can you?
You can in some parks. It's what the park will allow.
Okay.
If you're going to buy it in a park. So if you're going to buy it on its own land, you can get to do whatever you want to do within that home.
Okay.
So we have homes sitting on land up in Idaho, and also we've had them in Arizona, Carolinas, also in Florida, that we own the land. We have a mobile home sitting on it, or we have a couple of mobile homes sitting on them, and we rent those out. As it makes sense. The numbers got to make sense.
Yeah, totally. Because isn't it a lot harder to evict someone from a mobile home?
You have different landlord-tenant laws. If you understand what that is, and you have an attorney that understands what that is, it's not going to be as difficult. Okay. As you may think, it'll be as difficult as something else. You just have to document it. But there are different landlord-tenant laws for mobile home parks. So you need to know what that is.
In most of the cases you were talking about, did you buy your mobile homes on site, on the pad, or did you go buy them somewhere else and bring them and set them down?
These scenarios that I've given you, bought them on site because I have not found in Utah one where it makes sense to move it. Elsewhere, I have moved them and clustered them together on a parcel of land. So I'll start with 1 or 2 homes sitting on a parcel of land that I can add density, and we'll move in other ones. We'll have like little mini mobile home parks. Once we get the cash flow up, we'll get rid of it, or we'll end up modifying how they're paying. Like we'll just convert them from rentals to seller financing or something like that, or parse out the individual pieces. So there's different strategies we use.
And one question, has your investment home been more around just the individual units, or have you done an entire park and you went out and bought the land and developed the entire park?
We're in the middle of doing that up in Idaho. We have, in Tennessee, we've had some projects that we're looking at as well, but a lot of the stuff that we've gone after that was mobile home park specific, either had a couple homes that were there and that we added to it, or was an existing park. Does that answer your question? Okay. Oops. So, I mean, transient park, all right, retirement age, out of Florida, right? And this is actually one of the parks I buy on a regular basis. Love this park. I've made so much money up in that park. It's a community. It has a clubhouse. They have events on a regular basis. It's well maintained. The home sites are well maintained. People have pride of ownership. You're not seeing a bunch of cars sitting on the street. So as far as from an investment standpoint, because they asked me to tell you a little bit about kind of what would be the ideal if you're going to go after something, the easiest, fastest, best way is to go after the all ages community, because even with the 55 plus, are we a retirement state? Not unless you like snow and cold, right?
We're not in Florida.
So what's going to happen is your pool of bars is going to be quite restrictive, rather than if it's an all ages. Could you potentially have somebody that is 55 plus moving into your home? Yeah, I've got plenty. But it's an all ages community. It could be anybody. And so my pool of bars ends up being that much larger.
So when you find a plot of land and then you put mobile homes on it, do you have to hook up like sewer and water?
In some cases.
How do you do that? Like, is that super expensive?
It can be,
Okay.
Depends on the area. You have to do a lot of due diligence
Yeah.
to determine, if it's like a septic system, you have to determine what the setbacks are, how it needs to be set up, what the usability of the land is, and to see if it's going to be feasible based off of the building lot, actual dimensions, what you're able to actually, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a specific shoot, I lost a train of thought with that. There's a certain area in which you can end up on because of the setbacks that you can end up actually building within, and based off of the usability or the easements on the land, where you have to put the well in conjunction with the septic system. In some cases, there's going to be restrictions as to what the kind of density you need to do. And depending on the price of the land, the development and infrastructure costs, the engineering aspect of it, bringing in the homes, in some cases, it just doesn't make any sense. There was one park that we just walked away from in Tennessee that it was 8 homes, 6 different parcels. And what I was planning on doing is just taking each of those individual parcels and selling them off one at a time. And the first one was going to be able to be, it was a double wide sitting on just less than a half acre. I could easily sell that in the market for $120,000, and our purchase price on the park was $220,000. So a good portion of my money was going to be back to me right away. The problem is the owner was not willing to let us do checks on the septic system that had been put back in place back in the 60s, and there's no certificates on it from the city or the county. And so what ended up happening with that is that there was a lot of unknowns, and basically what the city county ended up saying to us is that if they end up testing it and they end up finding out that it doesn't work, your new requirements are going to be completely different. And so as far as feasibility of my exit strategy, I wasn't sure, and they weren't going to give me the time to do that due diligence. It was covered. So there's certain things that, you really need to make sure if you're going to do something like that, you do enough due diligence.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So there's a lot of different ways to be able to make money from them. We do have a lot of notes. We've used our mobile home notes as leverage to get loans. The development, the research and development, the growth aspect up in Idaho Falls, Rexburg, Idaho Falls, they have, there's lending that's available for development that we're using as collateral, some of our notes, our cash flows, to be able to get into this. So I'm taking, $5,000 and $10,000 that I initially put in. That's now on a receivable of $45,000. I'm taking that, combining it with a bunch of other ones, and now I'm putting that as collateral to get $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 loan. So, and it's mobile homes, and they're still willing to do it because it's a cash loan. We have good cash flow track history. So there's a lot of different ways in which you can mix and match stuff like this to be able to make money. So the big thing is it's easier to do it local. Remotely we do it, but I train people how to do it within the local market. So we've got eyes and ears. You just got to make sure it's feasible. You need to understand what your exit strategy is going to be. The park manager is the gatekeeper. Let me tell you a quick story, just proof point. I had a guy out of Idaho, Boise, Idaho, had a portfolio of notes he was trying to sell. Some of them had the individual mobile homes, the rest of them were the mobile home notes. We went up there, we're taking a look at it, and he had this one mobile home sitting in this community. Community was a nice community, a bunch of single wides, well-maintained, 70s, 80s era single wides, maybe 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. And it just recently had ownership change, and he was the only person that had to sign up in that community. I walked into the home and it smelled like new paint, but there was cobwebs in the corners. So what did that tell me? He's been sitting on it for a long time, right? So I asked him, I said, what's the problem with being able to sell it? It seems like it's been up on the market for a while. And he goes, we've had some issues with park management. And I looked at him and I said, this is going to be the decision maker as to whether, if you're going to be honest with me right now, as to whether I'm going to work with you or not. I said, what it seems to me is that you rehab the mobile home and you didn't get the approval. So you bought it and rehabbed it and you didn't get the approval from the park manager, and now you're stuck with it. And he just looked at his buddy, and the look of, I think they both went white because they're like, oh, she figured it out. But what had happened, so now they end up telling me the story. They said, oh yeah, we ended up buying it. We got too eager. We didn't check with the park manager. The park manager doesn't like us. And so now what they have is they have their acquisition costs, their rehab costs, and now their carrying costs, right? Now, could they move the mobile home? If they didn't work with RHP, probably, okay? So I believe in that case they could move the mobile home, but what does it cost to move a mobile home? $3,500 to $5,000 at least, if not more, to just transport it. So now they're in it, and it's just a single wide, okay, and it's older single wide. So now would that be feasible? No. Now they're paying $500 a month for the privilege of having that home there. They're sending a bunch of people over there, but does the park have to accept them? No. What kind of motivation is there? The lot rent's already being covered, because if they don't pay their lot rent, what happens? They get evicted, and guess who ends up taking the home? So it's just like if you had a 65-inch flat screen TV and then a rental, and you never came back and got it after 30 days, what happens to the landlord? Super Bowl, right? So it's just like, it's like that with these park owners, is that they have, if you don't move it, they get to take it back, and they get to take it back an improved home for nothing. So there's no incentive. So my recommendation is, if you're going to play in this game, if you do not have the blessing of that park manager or the park owner or both, you better not be buying mobile homes if you're in a park.
You say the blessing of the mobile home park owner. Like, what did they not ask him? I mean, like, did they not ask him if they could approve it, or?
If they could buy in the park, and what the qualifications would be. So if you don't have a dealer's license, you don't have a rapport with them, they haven't done any background check on you, majority of the time, they're not going to want to work with you until they have done that.
They have to, the park.
They have to have, yeah, they basically have to approve. Yeah, so just like they would any other tenant, they want to make sure they understand who is in their park, who are they working with, do you have a lot of bankruptcies, you know, does your credit really suck, do you have a criminal background? Even from an investor standpoint, they still want to make sure that they understand who they're working with. Now, you have a little bit more clout and credibility if you have a track history and you also have a mobile home dealer's license, because they, you know, we're licensed and bonded, right? We have decent track history. We've got recommendations and referrals from a bunch of, you know, from a bunch of other people, other park managers. So it's a little bit easier that way. But when I first got started, I went in as a person because they wouldn't even take a look at my entity. And I had to qualify, and I had to have that sitting on my credit as an individual. So, you know, there's ways in which you can work with them. I mean, there's tons of homes that I've gotten over time where, you know, based off of what I was talking about, I forget who asked the question, we were talking about expense ratios. I was saying 15 to 30% just for the lot rent. A lot of them would prefer just to keep it that, rather than have the extra expense of maintaining the rental homes. And so they're willing to pass those on. Or what's going to happen is, in some cases, they're only going to give you the old stuff, and they'll keep the new stuff for themselves. So, and the reality is, a lot of these parks won't do internal financing. And so if you don't go through Triad, and you can't qualify through Triad or 21st Mortgage, they're not going to be able to qualify. And so they're going to be stuck with the home. So a lot of cases, we're sticking with about 20,000 or less, all in. We prefer to stay about 25 and under. Pretty much that's our consistent amount. Rehab and repair and holding costs $3,500 to $6,500. Double or triple our investment when we go to resell it. Rental, lease option, seller finance in Utah. We mostly are doing seller finance or cash out. Normally, most of our stuff is 6 months to 4 years is what our amortization is as far as our returns. And then we're netting 200 to 500 once we've gotten all paid back. So we have a variety of different sources we pull our funds from. Just because they're small amounts, we've had business lines of credit, personal lines of credit, self-directed IRAs. I've used title loans. One of the first mobile homes I bought, I have a 73 Nova that I haven't yet fixed up again. It was one of my first cars. I used that as title to go to one of the banks. It's one of the credit unions. They gave me $600, and that's how I got into it. So I flipped my own trailer. I didn't want to lose my car, so I took that money and was paying it off as quickly as possible. So that's one of the ways I got started. We use a lot of private money now. We also do a lot of joint ventures. We've got some agents that we've worked with in the past that they're like, I don't know what to do with this thing. I don't want to list it. But, you know, if you end up doing something with it, can you show me the love? And what we've done is we've actually done a joint venture. You know, both parties end up having co-ownership of it. We end up kicking them of maybe a percentage, maybe 5 or 10% of what the gross amount is that we end up collecting. And that ends up being a nice little residual. You do a few of those with us, you end up being able to get up to, you know, $500, $1,000 a month just on having passed on a lead. So we try to reward people for the referrals that they end up offering.
Talk a little bit more about that, but some of these guys want to get into this arena. I mean, are you doing enough volume? Do you have enough going on if you're looking for joint venture partners?
We are.
I mean,
We're always looking for leads. Yeah, we're always looking for leads. We're anxious. I have a 2018 mobile home that we're buying up in North Salt Lake. The realtor that is helping to get the people into the actual house. I had a conversation with her yesterday, and she goes, I wish I would have known about you guys sooner, because I would have passed that lead on to you, because it would have been a lot faster, because they had already had the thing sitting on the market with another agent that didn't know what to do with it for about 2 months, and it almost canceled their other transaction on the back end with her, because she didn't want to touch it. She didn't know what to do with it. But another agent took it over, and they didn't know what to do with it either. So they basically put the people into a panic situation. Whereas if they could have passed the referral to us, we could have figured out some sort of way to be able to make the numbers work for everybody, because they had a situation where they need to pay things off. They need to be out from underneath their lot rent. There's specific things that we need to have in place. We have no problem working with that scenario as long as we understand what it is and everybody's on the same page. And if we can end up communicating back and forth that way, it makes it a lot easier for the whole process to move smoother, to get the people into the home, to get the agent the big commission, and possibly a little bit of a residual on the backside for having passed on the lead.
So these people are buying from you, are they also paying the mobile home owner a rent fee as well? So they're paying you your financing fee that you're charging them. They're also paying a rent fee.
You got it.
Right?
You're right. And then on the utilities that they have on top of that. So basically what we try to do is we try to keep whatever amount the monthly that is affordable for whatever the market is. So typically we'll look at comparable apartments or comparable houses in the area, number of beds, type of condition, type of neighborhood, and take a look at what the rents are, and we'll try to stay off of that, maybe about 100, 150, $50 a month off of that, so that we're more affordable. And it just gives them a lot more options, because in some cases, from a credit standpoint or background check standpoint, they may not necessarily qualify for an apartment, but they could qualify for the park.
You can probably extend those terms too if you wanted to, right? I mean, is it set terms that you guys set, like 4 years, 5 years? I mean, could you extend them out 10 years if you wanted to make it a lesser payment, but you're still collecting interest on all your loan?
Right, as long as we can get the return we're looking for with our money, because it depends on if we have other investors involved. We have a certain responsibility to get them their return within a certain period of time. And so as long as there's a sufficient amount of cash flow. And the other thing too is, this next, the beginning of next year is one of our best times of year, because people have tax return money. So we can typically get larger down, and people have a willingness to spend a bit more. I don't know if you guys have that in the real estate side, but we definitely do have that in the mobile home side. So this time of year is typically when I bulk up with number of homes I'm trying to buy. In fact, we actually have 3 that we're in the middle of buying right now, so that we can flip them for the first of the year. But yes, we can stretch them out. We try to work with the people. We want to make sure it's affordable. We don't want to have to go through a default with them. Majority of the time what we say is, hey, if you end up telling us what your circumstances are, we can figure something out. If you're willing to work with us, we have no problem being willing to work with you and be cooperative. So very rarely do we actually have an actual default. I think we've had 2. Recently, we've had 2 bankruptcies. One ended up resulting in the bankruptcy judge saying, take it back. They're not going to be able to afford it. So we got that one back. That was actually that yellow one. It was 2009 or 15 that was up there. And then the other one we're dealing with, which has been interesting. It's just an interesting circumstance, but we're still making money on it. So
if somebody wants to buy a house, but they're not credit ready to buy a house, and they're kind of in that entry level price range anyway, they come to you and say, well, I'd rather buy something like this than rent. Are you guys registered with the bureaus where you actually report their payment schedules on their credit?
We don't necessarily do that, but we can give them we can show a payment history. We can also offer that, but we don't necessarily report to that, just because of the amount of money that costs. We also will give them a 1099 at the end of the year, so that they have the offset from a tax standpoint for interest. We're not going to give them the best rate. We're under 12, depending on how good their credit is, what their track history's been, how consistent their employment is, what kind of money they make per month. Will be a little bit higher. And the reason for that is because of the level of risk that we have associated with the types of loans that we're doing. We're doing chattel mortgages, so that's one of the other reasons. So, some of the questions you guys had asked, as far as what are my sources, we're doing some drive-by type stuff. I've done online ads, other investors. A lot of the stuff that I use is just referral, because a lot of it's referral based. So a lot of times, just because of the reputation, good reputation, thankfully, we've established within the industry, we get referrals. And we love leads, we love referrals. Like I said, if you're an agent or if you're another investor, we'll make it worth your while. It's just a matter of what the set of circumstances are. There are certain deals that we won't touch. Let me see if I can get to that. So take a look at that picture there. What do you think? Deal or no deal?
You're not afraid of, no, it's a deal.
Yeah, because that's actually a board through the tub, okay? And the rest of the house had similar things. You see how rusty this is? Just imagine all the water going in. What they'd done is they had a roof truss, and this is an older home. I think it's a 78, this one. But they had a roof truss, and they cut a hole in the roof right through the truss to put their wood-burning fireplace. So what happens to the rest of the structure, right? So that's their patch job. That's their patch job here, okay? So to say the least, from here back on this side of the house was a leaking sieve, okay? It was a mess. It was a bit of a mess. So what do you think? Deal or no deal?
For the right price.
Do you think we did it?
Yes.
You want to hear the story?
Before it sounds like you bought
That's what I was.
So the thing that's interesting with this is it was a brand new park referral, a park manager that contacted me. Her regional manager had said, hey, contact these guys. They might be willing to take it on. I go up there and I walk into the house and I almost fall through the floor. So I'm like, what the heck's the rest of this going to be like, right? And I'm no lightweight. I'm a big girl, I admit it. I already know that, who knows what's throughout the rest of the house. So it was interesting walking through it, and I was like, I really don't want to do this. So the park manager goes, just give me a number. I need to go back to my boss. Give me a number. I said, $500. Because I figured, no way in heck would she take that. She calls me back within an hour and a half. Deal. So the thing is, this is a new relationship. Now, let me tell you this. Fast forward, I have made so much dang money in that park. Remember me telling you about that park that showed you that all ages park? That's that park, okay? So in some cases, taking the box, okay, we called it that because look at the color, okay? All right, it definitely was. And turning it into something that was actually quite pretty, okay? We completely redid that kitchen. The bathrooms were completely torn out. We took the roof, popped the roof off, put a whole new one on, plumbing, new swamp cooler, new furnace. Basically, I think everything except for the hot water heater needed to be redone. Now, $500. My total all in was $25,500 for all that work. Now, yeah, we do a little bit of miracle work, but the thing is from a labor standpoint, from a material standpoint, I went shopping at Restore. I went shopping on KSL. I went shopping, okay, trying to find the best deals. We did a lot of bartering to be able to keep the cost down on this, but this home was completely redone. It was basically probably like in the single family world, a $70,000 to $85,000 rehab is what it was with the stuff that we did, type of stuff that we did. This lady bought it. So 77, I thought it was 78. So it's a decent amount of square feet, right? Purchase, holding cost was about $3,000 because it took us a while to do the work on it. It was in the middle of the winter. 19,000. Yeah, so it was about right. So it talks about all of the different things that we did, okay? Days on market was 3. We held on to it for a longer period of time just because of the amount of rehab we had to do. Resale price of $45,000, $4,000 down, 11.5, $406 a month, 360 months. So she's on a 30-year mortgage, right? Guess who's still there? Guess who just recently put all new windows in the home? You think she's moving anytime soon? She spent $6,000 on windows in that house. She's not moving. She loved it. You know what happened is this lady was living. She doesn't speak English. She got taken advantage with her house and got kicked out and was living in a hotel. Her dream was to be able to provide a home for she and her extended family, because she's a single lady. Her husband had passed away. And she was so ecstatic to see this house and be able to have enough money saved up to get into it. Now that's another reason, folks, the reason why I do this, is I'm able to help people to be able to get out of a home that they would rather not have anymore, or that's a financial burden for them, to get into something else or to move on with their life. The other thing is to be able to provide a good quality home, because the way the thing was before, it wasn't healthy or safe or habitable for anybody. But now at that home, I mean, and look at the return, I can't help but get excited about that. Longer rate of return, but definitely ended up turning out to be a good investment. She's still paying. As far as mobile homes go, so it goes back to your question, that's typically what's transferred. And then you have your tax statement. You always want to make sure the taxes are paid current before you take it, because that'll be a nice little hit. Lot rent needs to be paid current. You need to make sure that they actually have title in their name and that they're actually the legal lawful owner, and that it matches up with the VIN number that's on the vehicle, the mobile home.
Can title companies do searches on mobile homes?
You can do a DMV. It's DMV. Unless it's attached to the land, they don't typically track it. So you'd have to go down to the DMV. They'll do a search for the title, check and see who currently is. The thing that's kind of nice is some of the, there is another thing that you can end up doing. Like for instance, I think it's Davis, might be Weber. It's one of them. They have a website where, from a tax assessor standpoint, the personal property taxes, you can actually do a search and see where taxes are on that respective lot within that community. So you can actually see if they're paid current, and it'll actually know, like, why would somebody pay taxes on something they don't want or own, right? You know?
Search the lot, not like the serial number for the.
Yeah, with the personal property tax assessor, it would be the lot, it's the parcel with the home on it, personal property, whereas the DMV would actually be the title side. So it was taxes, what I was referring to there. DMV is going to be the title search.
There's no privacy.
You can check and verify that so-and-so's on title, currently on title. They may or may not offer the information, but.
Yeah, isn't it on the actual title, like a car who currently owns
It is, but that title may it may be an old title. So let me offer you a little more information in regard to that. There's nuances of different things that if you don't know what you're doing, you could be buying something worthless. So there are tax sales for personal property. We do have personal property tax sales for the mobile homes within our industry. Each county holds them at different years, for different time frames. If somebody goes in and buys the back taxes, pay for the back taxes, they're now going to receive title. So she could still have title, but her home could have been sold out. He could have been the highest bidder. He's got the most recent title, even though she shows you a title that's got her name on it. So it may not actually be. It might be his, and you may have bought something, paid $20,000 for something you have no rights to. So if you don't do your due diligence, you could be buying something you don't really have rights to.
So there's multiple titles out there, pretty much.
Could be.
Fraud.
That one would be recorded, hers would be negated, because she doesn't own it anymore because of him buying at the tax sale. She forfeited because she didn't pay her taxes.
That's when you go and check in with DMV.
DMV, right.
DMV is always over mobile home because it's considered like a trailer, like you pull behind your truck.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Same thing with manufactured modular homes as well.
Modular different, but manufactured and mobile, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so manufactured would be 76 and newer. Mobile would be pre-76, June 15th. But there's a lot of different ways in which to be able to acquire them. I've had some really creative ways that we've acquired them. I bought land and ended up getting a mobile home along with it, or found out that they're getting ready to move it, and I'm like, no, please don't. And they're like, oh, well, you can have that for free. Because most people don't view them as having any sort of value. And if you end up dealing with anything in regard to land, there might be value associated with that mobile home that you don't realize, folks. And if that's a situation where you're not quite sure what to do with it, please keep my number, because we've got a park up in Idaho that we're looking to develop. We could use some mobile homes to be put up there. We've got relationships with other parks that we're looking to fill their lots too.
How
So
big is that park you're doing?
how big?
Like how many units?
The first phase will be 50.
And are you having to put in sewer or septic?
We have connection to sewer and public water. I don't want to have to deal with the septic and the well aspect of it.
So from your performer getting ready to develop that, I know Brindley, you guys are thinking about maybe starting from scratch or interested in maybe doing a park, right?
Maybe.
Maybe,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of interesting in that. So where is that the one you were telling us about? You used your notes as collateral to get the
We're in the
funds?
process of doing that, yes.
Are there any other financing options or?
Private, we've got private money, joint ventures with private money. There's more financing available now than there's been in the entire time that I've been in the industry, because it's hip and cool to own a mobile home park. So, or develop one. So you're gonna have a lot easier time of being able to find that. If nothing else, the land and land improvement aspect, you'll have no problem with. Trying to finance the mobile homes, you might have a little bit more problem. And so what you do is you joint venture with somebody like me that can source them, is willing to end up doing it, and all you have to worry about is your return on the land. You don't have to worry about the mobile homes. Now, it depends on what your strategy is. I mean, that's one thing that's really cool with a mobile home park, is that, you know, here you've got your land, and you can have this one being rented, this one seller financed, just owning the lot on this one, and they can cash flow differently depending on what's happening in the market. So if everybody is looking to buy something and they don't want to rent necessarily, but they want to buy something, and then from an affordability standpoint, offer seller financing on those, you know, and you can get a higher dollar amount per month, because when somebody's looking to buy, they're going to pay more per month than when they're looking to rent, right? At least from an affordability standpoint, in a lot of cases. So that's the thing that's really cool with a mobile home park versus an apartment complex. If you go to try to sell those individual units, what do you have to do with it? You have to do a condo conversion. What kind of expense do you have? Got a lot of money invested to retrofit it, and then go through the separate deeding process, right? Whereas with a mobile home, you can mix and match depending on what happens in the market. You're not excited by that? I get excited by that. That's awesome. Playing in a trailer park. So, you know, you can do quick turns, get cash now. You can do money over time. There's a variety of different ways to be able to set it up. Doing joint ventures. Definitely, these are things to avoid when you're getting started. Me as an investor, if I can't buy it for cheap enough, I'm not even gonna, if it's got major roof issues, I won't touch it, other than my big brown beauty that I had. Small repairs, if it's a shingled roof, it's a lot easier than a metal roof. A lot of people do not maintain their metal roofs, and it'll get warped if water's sitting on it. So there's issues with that. HVAC can get quite expensive on these. There's also, the reason why is because a lot of HVAC guys will not touch them. So you have to have somebody that's willing to do the work on those. The plumbing is different as well. On a lot of the homes, you have homes that were built back in the late 80s to mid 90s that was put together with the polybutylene. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It's kind of an opaque, it's like a PEX, but it's an opaque version of PEX. It's like the pre-PEX. And the way that it's crimped on, a lot of the fixtures that you have with mobile homes are, if they're coming off of the manufacturer and they haven't been replaced yet, they actually have, for lack of another word, a male part and a female part going together, okay? And so it actually has to be crimped on. If it's not crimped on correctly, you'll end up having slow leaks and you'll end up having big huge messes. I had a 1994 mobile home that the entire laundry room and both bathrooms had small leaks. That situation, like I was talking about, small leaks that we ended up having to completely tear out. Don't worry, I made good money on the home. I know you guys were all concerned, but we had to tear all that stuff out first. But that's another situation that you'll have with some of those. And anybody that is savvy with mobile homes as a buyer, that might be a problem. Okay, so just a heads up. Pre-76 might be a problem for them as well. We'll buy down to 70. We won't go into the 60s. We'll not touch a 1960s home. I normally will not touch something that has had a hole cut out of it and something else added onto it either, because it affects the structural integrity. What you have is your weight-bearing walls are on the outside of the home, on all of double wides and single wides. So if you cut through that, what happens to the integrity of the home? You end up having brown Betty again, okay? So anyway, that's pretty much the key elements of mobile home investing. I kind of jump forward and then I'll jump back. So my name's Don. I'm in the local area. If you have questions, I love talking mobile homes, as you can tell. Most of the parks I know pretty well throughout Utah County, all the way up into Weber County. We're getting pretty savvy with a lot of the stuff up in Idaho Falls, Rexburg metro area, Pocatello. We're interested in anything, you know, individual mobile homes sitting in a park. We're interested in mobile homes sitting on land that could be developed for mobile homes. We're interested in joint venturing if that ends up being appealing. We're like, I'm not gonna list this thing, but I would need to get these people into a home. We'd love to talk with you. We've got mobile home ones.
Okay.
And, you know, just possibly helping you out with understanding how to price it, might be able to help you out that way. If the person's willing to make some payments or receive payments over time, there's ways that we can structure that and help out. So anyway, that's me.
Awesome, thanks, Don.
Thank you,
That's good info.